Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back again this week to talk a little bit about some high school football and all that kind of jazz. We got college, NFL. We have people running around playing sports in all these various locations around here.
And we're on the air.
Right off the bat.
Oh, wow.
Yes, this week I remembered to push your mic button so that you're on the air with me.
It has been a challenge.
It has. Yeah, I mean, I would like to take a minute and say this has been a 3-month-ish work in progress, trying to get all that. We have a new computer system and all that stuff. And as you know, whenever a new system gets installed anywhere, it takes a little while to work out the kinks. But we're here. Eventually, we will also actually have a third microphone in this studio so we can get to where we get more people in. You have a nice stool to sit on.
I do.
Not a creaky chair. I just stand over here because I'm kind of hyperactive, I suppose. But, yeah, so we're all good. On the air, new studio. Everything is set up. My son's come to visit. His name is Augie. Some people might remember him. So we're all here hanging out. Let's start off with some high school football. I put down the Glasgow game first for two reasons. One is they won big over Hart County, but I think they're going to face a really tough foe this coming Friday, and it'll be their biggest test really since that first game of the season against Woodford County.
Yes, it will. And I think the score against Hart was like 57 to
14.
Yeah, and there was some talk that Hart County could be competitive against them, and
yeah,
and I think I said, no, I can't see that happening. And what was amazing about I called the Barren game on the radio, so I didn't get to see the game, but I was just looking at the stats, and I think Glasgow had 8 people or 9 people that scored.
Mm-hmm.
They had 12 people that ran the ball. Mm-hmm. The most anybody carried was 4.
Yeah.
You talking about spreading the wealth. I mean, it almost looked like to me they knew going into the game that this was going to happen. And they got everybody involved, and it's almost sort of like a bye week for a lot of them. A lot of players got to rest, and when nobody carries the ball more than 4 times, is a real advantage this time of year.
And one of the things that happened was we talked last week about the most impressive thing about the win over Allen County was the fact that they played so well defensively in the first half, held them to 19 yards. And really, Hart County didn't do much on offense overall. Now, they found a play with their fullback that worked, and I'm sure Greenwood will be studying the film to see if they can duplicate that. Glasgow had a little bit of a struggle with that. Most of their yards were basically gained. Hart County's yards were gained off of that little fullback trap, I guess is basically what it was. You just, I think, catch the lineman going too far upfield because he thinks he can make a play in the backfield, and the fullback just runs underneath him more or less. And I think they did that, but now Glasgow eventually adjusted to that, and they started stopping that too. And so their defense has been really quite impressive. As we say, it's not sometimes who you beat, it's how you beat them. And once again, Glasgow in these last 3 games has proven they know how to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And I really thought Hart might be a little bit more of a challenge for them just because I thought Hart was playing a little better and they have a little more talent this year. But, I mean, Glasgow basically shut down everything else they even wanted to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was not much of a contest. And Hart County was 3-1 in fairness, but I just did not think they played the schedule. And I can't remember the last time Hart County's beaten Glasgow in football.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. So, looks like Glasgow, after the first game against Woodford, has found, turned it back around, and, it's got good balance on offense. Defensively, they're really good. But they'll be challenged against Greenwood. Greenwood is probably the best team they played. Arguably, could be better than Woodford. We'll see. But
yeah.
Greenwood's, 5-0 or
4-0.
4-0, coming off a good win against Logan.
Mm-hmm. Their defense has been fantastic all year long.
Fantastic, and they're good enough offensively too. And the coach's son is a really good player.
Yeah, he
plays on
does it all.
Does it on both sides of the ball. Kind of similar, maybe to John Carter Myers.
Yes,
he's bigger. He's a linebacker, and plays a little quarterback. But he's known for how well he plays on defense. We're talking about Lofton Howard.
Yeah.
So this will be a physical game. It'll be the most physical team pretty confident it's probably the most physical team that Glasgow has faced, Greenwood. And it will be a challenge to go down to the Swamp, I believe.
Yes.
And beat Greenwood. But I do think it's going to be a close game, and I think Glasgow, it's probably a pick 'em, go either way.
Yeah. Going back to the Woodford County situation, the only bad thing about the Woodford County loss for Glasgow is the score of the loss, because Woodford County on Friday night, they beat Franklin County 24-21. I think that was the first time they had beaten them in 13 years.
Okay.
So this Woodford County team, I think, is legitimately good. That score probably is more lopsided than anybody would expect in hindsight, especially on that Friday night. But I think this Woodford County team has proven that this may be their year as well.
I'm sure. I'm sure they're really good.
Yeah.
Losing to them 50-0 is
not good.
Shocking. That's right.
Yeah. Because
but that looks like a long time ago.
It is because we like to say this sometimes. There are reasons, but not excuses.
Right.
Two of Glasgow's key players didn't play in that game, and they also didn't play against Russellville the next week. And so, since those guys have been back on the offense and defensive side, it's made a difference.
And teams evolve.
Yeah.
They get better or they get worse. I
Yeah.
mean, depending on improvement and depending on injury, teams can go different directions and so forth. But a team that's this experienced like Glasgow, a lot of seniors, I felt like they was going to bounce back from that.
Right.
Could be the best thing that's ever happened to them.
Could have been. I mean, it certainly woke up the younger guys, I imagine. They may have walked into that game thinking, believing all the press clippings and the hype that was around them. Mentioning, I don't know about getting worse, but the injuries and stuff. Barren County did take one on the chin with North Laurel Friday night. It was 34-7, I think it was the score. Lost Jamison Bowie in the game to a shoulder injury, I believe it was.
Collarbone.
Yep. And so, I mean, that's a devastating loss for them. I know Will Childress has been playing quarterback, but you just don't replace the just general experience of a senior quarterback.
Well, they had several players out. It was debatable whether or not Barren was even going to play at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, they had their tailback out. They had two starting linemen on offense and defense out. They had their receiver out, another running back out. So they were very short-handed. Mm-hmm. And then when they lost Jamison, I think you can make the argument that Jamison may be their best overall player.
Yeah.
He said he's really good on quarterback. Most people know about that, but they've moved him to the defensive side too, and he's been lights out on defense. And losing him, and he may be out. I don't know if he's out for the year or not, but it was one of those injuries where he was scrambling as a quarterback to the left and was trying to make that throw to the right, and he got tackled, and he got tackled by two linemen, fell right on top of him, and his shoulder went right into that.
Yeah.
I knew it as soon as it happened. I've seen those on TV, and he came up, and he was clearly in a lot of pain, didn't go back in, and if he is out, that's a big loss. Offensively, defensively, 3-year starter.
Yeah.
And Will Childress has played, and he'll go in, and I think Will's done a good job, but that's a monster loss. And Barren they just completely for the first time this year, we were dominated at the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. Only had 4 first downs for the entire game.
Right.
And just never ever could get anything going offensively. And North Laurel's a good team. I think they're 4-1 now. Mm-hmm. And they're a good team, but it was just not much of anything that Barren could do. It was one of those where we could never get anything going. 4 first downs, you're not going to score. They scored on one long pass to Aiden Miller, and that was it. And, North Laurel dominated the game.
Yeah.
The problem for Barren is their schedule. They're just now turning the corner into the –
right. The meat is right in front of them.
They got Russellville, who's good.
Yes.
Russellville's not physically – they're not going to just out-physical Barren, but they got a lot of good skilled players.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn to the North Hardin, Central Hardin, Meade County, the real tough physical teams, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's a 4-week stretch. Well, really 5 week because the bye week's in there too. But it's a 4-game stretch that is the meat of the schedule, and it's the one. I mean that the preseason, so to speak, is all aimed toward the Russellville's preseason, so to speak, meaning before the district schedule.
Yep.
You're playing those games to try to improve yourself and hopefully keep everybody healthy, which is one of the things you always look at. But, I mean, Barron's kind of in a tough situation at the moment because some of those players may still not be back this coming Friday when they play Russellville. Bowie will be out. I mean, there's no way he'll be back. And so Tommy Muse and his coaching staff, they're kind of in a position right now that maybe Glasgow was in last year when they had to make a bunch of wholesale changes.
Well, as I've said, it's hard when you got starters out, and I've said this time and time in high school. There's a reason why certain people play over other players, unless you're playing the wrong people. When you don't have your starters,
which doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. Sometimes coaches just flat out miss it.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
So when you don't have your best players, and all these kids that were missing for Barren played offense and defense. So it's like if you're missing 4, it's like missing 8.
Yes,
because they're playing both ways, and it's hard to duplicate. That type of execution. If you don't have your best players, it's just flat out. That's just where it goes.
Well, and the other thing that I think
you may have players to play,
right?
But it may not.
You got bodies.
They may not be as skillful as the other ones when you're missing so many players.
Well, and I think the thing that often people miss is they think about they weren't there on Friday night, but that means they weren't there all week during practice or whatever days they missed, which means people were now practicing in different slots, trying to turn. And some of them. I mean, it may not seem like a big deal for a guy who's been playing tackle to then play guard, but it kind of is when you only have 3 days to prepare for the different reads you got to have.
Right.
It's not just lining up and blocking that guy in front of you all the time, especially when you're running a kind of offense like Barron's running where you have that you got some reads in there and that kind of stuff, and you got to make sure, whether on those wing options and that kind of stuff, those linemen have got to know what's going on behind them a lot of times.
It's not good because when you miss games, you're also missing practice.
Yeah.
And you lose conditioning and you lose a lot of things. So it's hard to get better if you don't practice.
Right.
That's kind of the purpose of practice.
Yeah.
Right?
Despite what Allen Iverson says.
It's like that, just practice, well, it's practice also is how you get better.
Yeah.
So it's a tough call, but it's at least they're getting to play. I mean, the team is.
Yeah.
But it was this COVID can hit you at any time. And the injury was really the first major injury that we've had, to be honest with you. We've been quite fortunate, but that's a tough one, losing Jameson. And I feel bad for him. He's a senior.
Right.
3-year starter, and it's always tough.
Now, that was on the injury was on his non-throwing arm, though.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that impacts the return time or that kind of thing. I mean, it certainly, it's still got to heal and whatever amount of time that takes and all that kind of jazz. So, it does impact that. But in terms of, throwing a football, it doesn't have the same impact if it was on his throwing arm. But real quick, I also want to kind of talk about Caverna here. We haven't really talked about them yet this year. They've played a bunch of Saturday games. Actually, I think their first 3 games were all played on Saturdays. And they opened the season with a 38-36 win at Trimble County. Then they lost 2 consecutive weeks in a row. I was going over their stats. It looked like they were missing some folks in those games. And I bring this up because they actually beat Edmonson County on Friday night 28-20. And now Edmonson is down this year. I don't know if we've talked about that on here. They have a limited number of players this year. We talked about that on the game night, the U.S. Army game night that Brian Webb does, and sometimes I show up on there. We talked about the limited number of players Edmonton
they've
has.
got less than 30.
Yeah, actually, I think they got about 18, something like that.
That's less than 30.
Yes, much less. But the reason I point this out is Caverna had not won 2 games in a season since 2015.
Okay.
And so that's 2 wins that they have. And they actually have a kid, Cameron Buchanan, who's having an outstanding year. He returned, I think he had 2 interceptions in that game and returned 1 for a touchdown. He also plays quarterback. I think he didn't throw a touchdown, but I think he ran for 1. He ran for over 100 yards. They're kind of in a position numbers-wise where they're having to rely on him quite a bit, to do so much and everywhere on the field. And so if he misses any time or any of that kind of stuff, it has a huge impact. I think Caleb Edwards ran for over 100 yards against Edmonson County. So they actually didn't just accidentally win the game. They did some good things in order to pull off that win.
Yeah, it's been a struggle.
Yeah, 6 years since the last time they won 2 games in a season. And I think they had lost prior to beating Trimble County. I think they had lost 13 in a row because they didn't win a game last year. Their last win was in 2019 against Shawnee, I think it was.
Who finally won.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, they did. Good story for them, too. I don't think – they hadn't won a game in, was it 7 years? I don't remember what the number –
Warren Central has the longest losing streak.
Yeah.
They were like second.
Yeah. Yeah, they were trying to catch up.
Right.
The kind of record you don't really want to catch up to.
No.
Yeah, so, good for them, too, Shawnee getting that win. And there were some other, I think, teams around the state. Warren Central still can't just quite get there. I mean, they've brought back some of their old coaches to try to get this program back on the right footing.
Right, and they've been hit hard again with COVID too.
Yeah.
It's another thing. It's hard to improve your team if you don't practice. It's frustrating because you once you finally get to play, you're playing kids who hadn't practiced in weeks, and it's just hard. It's tough.
Yeah. Were there any other games around the area of the state that stood out to you from Friday night?
Well, I mean, Green goes to 4-0.
Yep.
They're in Glasgow's district. They defeated
not
Monroe.
Glasgow's district. This is right. Monroe, Metcalf. I know.
Metcalf. I keep forgetting.
The classification thing messes you up.
Glasgow goes back and forth between 2 and 3A. You're right. They're in 3A now. That's correct. That's right.
I don't think they will be much longer. I think they got 1 year left in there. I think when they do the count and everything, they do the reclassification in the spring, that we will see they'll be moving back down.
Okay. Bowling Green got hammered 31-0 by Boyle County.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often where they get beat. But they lost. It's not like they lost Podunk.
Defending state champs, right?
Defending state champs. Arguably, Bowling Green, Boyle County, two of the top 5 programs overall in the state.
Oh, yeah.
St. X, Trinity.
Yeah.
So those
year in, year out, consistently just
Mel.
powerhouses.
Powerhouse. So, but you got to commend Bowling Green. They will go play people. They're not scared to play people. Now, part of it they have to.
Yeah.
They have trouble getting games, but they play St. X, and they don't play Trinity this year, but they have played them in the past, go to Boyle County, so they'll play.
Yeah. They've played, Pleasure Ridge Park as well, which is not the same level of those, but it is a Louisville school.
Right.
But like you said, I mean, they play Boyle. They do play everyone who will schedule them.
Yes.
And I guess they and South Warren are kind of in the same boat at this point in time. In this neck of the woods, it's hard to find probably some games because their programs have gotten so strong at just state level competitive year in and year out that people probably shy away from playing them.
If you don't have to play them, a lot of teams don't.
Yeah, well, good point. Sometimes they'll just move up a classification not to play them anymore.
That has happened.
Yes, it has. All right, it's the Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's in Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we also had a full weekend of college and NFL football. I really want to kind of start out talking about a couple of NFL games that, I mean, they were just fantastic games in the kind of the same sense in a way, because we had the Titans who came back and beat the Seahawks in overtime 33-30. And I tell you what, man, in the first half, when I was watching that game, I was like, no, I think the Titans may just be bad this year, because their defense was bad. They couldn't finish offensive drives. I mean, they had 3 field goals. I think they had 1 touchdown that was nullified on the replay in the first half. But it was some of the coverages and just it wasn't tackling. It's just the general defensive scheme just didn't look good against Seahawks.
Well, they weren't good last year on defense.
No.
I don't think they've got that solved.
They apparently have not.
No, they
Russell Wilson is good, but, man, he looked exceptional against them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they've got the defensive side solved, but they've faced 2 good offensive teams in Seattle, and I think it was Arizona the first time, the Murray.
Two quarterbacks they've had a hard time corralling, really.
They have, but they, like I said, they were bad last year on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Offense, they've very talented. Got one of the best backs in the game in Henry.
I think he is the best.
And you got 2 big-time receivers, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Tannehill's good.
Although A.J. Brown, what do you have, 3 drops in that game? I think?
He didn't play well, but he's good.
He is good.
He's good. So that's a good win, winning at Seattle. And one thing, the NFL is such a week-by-week league. It's unlike college where, these are pros, and oftentimes when the pros get embarrassed, 1 week they will bounce back. It's amazing. You got to be really, really careful if you're trying to wager on the pros. You can't. If you go by like they did last week, you might as well throw it out.
Yeah,
because it's just completely. I mean, they can wipe that slate. It didn't seem like there's a lot of carryover.
Yeah.
Ask New Orleans.
It
looked like the greatest team in the world.
Jameis Winston became Jameis Winston again.
Yeah. Then they couldn't even move the ball against Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I would say tonight the Packers will probably just put the smack down on Detroit.
Yeah.
So Buffalo goes from playing awful to shutting out Miami. I mean, this stuff consistently happens. So it was a good win for the Titans, 1-1. But until they get their kicking situation solved, and he did make the kick to win it, but he also missed an extra point.
Right.
Until they get that solved and be able to somehow pressure the other team's quarterback. Defensively, that's where they really struggled. I think Tennessee would kind of be up and down.
Yeah. Their defense right now is basically, this may seem odd, but their defense is Derrick Henry. Because if Derrick Henry can carry the ball 25 times and because they dominated possession.
Sure.
They just couldn't finish those drives. And so their defense is basically, can we keep our defense off the field and not expose it?
Right.
And that only works for so long. I mean, I think that's kind of been their Achilles heel for 3 or 4 years now when you get right down to it. I mean, even when their defense has been good, they still relied on the notion that Derrick Henry has to have the ball. They have to control it.
The oddity is that normally you kind of take the personality of your head coach, and their head coach is Mike Vrabel, great defensive player for New England.
Yeah.
So you would think kind of his niche to the strength, and I think he's a good coach.
I do too.
But their strength would be toughness, and they are offensively tough because Henry's like a battering ram.
Yeah.
But you think there would be a little bit more solid on the defense front. I'm sure it frustrates the heck out of him as a former NFL All-Pro and Super Bowl champion on the defensive side for New England that has not transpired. But
well, I don't know if you saw the sideline video of him after they blew the coverage on 3rd and 13 or whatever it was and gave up the touchdown pass and went back down 14. And it looked like he was yelling at somebody coming off the field, do you guys even know who you have, or something of that nature?
Yeah.
I don't know what the words were, but he was basically yelling at them, how can you just leave a dude 3rd and 13 just wide open and nobody cover him?
Yeah, with Russell Wilson throwing.
Yeah, I mean.
I know, that's right.
And so it is maybe just the bottom line is the talent's not there. I mean, that's got to be at least part of the problem.
I'm sure, but you draft him.
That's true.
You can sign him.
He can't excuse this anymore. He's been there a couple of years now. He's had the opportunity to refill the cupboard.
They paid Julio Jones.
Yeah.
So maybe they should have paid.
I don't know, somebody
on defense.
They could have paid 2 people to play defense.
That's right. I don't know. We'll see. It's early. It's 2 games.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then meanwhile, that Ravens-Chiefs game also, it was a great game. And there again,
Lamar played like Lamar.
Yeah,
he was great.
The interesting thing about him is the sense that we focus on what he does in terms of like the position he plays, that kind of thing.
And what he doesn't do.
And what he doesn't do.
He's not the greatest thrower sometimes.
Yeah, he's not the greatest caretaker of the football sometimes. He's a little loose with it. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, and I think we've said this from back when he was at Louisville, it's not so much the position he plays, it's that he's just a football player.
Yeah, he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
He's a dynamic playmaker. He's incredible to watch when he's at his best.
Oh, yeah.
Now, does he need to get better throwing it? Yeah, he's not the most accurate. Mm-hmm. And if he wants to play in this league when he's in his 30s,
once the athleticism starts fading,
he's got to adjust. That's correct. But he is a fantastic leader. I don't know if anybody that plays on his team that doesn't like him.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean is like he does everything on the field and is dynamic.
He's good off the field too. I mean, There's no issues with him. He's a tough kid. I mean, I was happy for him.
Yeah,
because he first pass of the game was returned for an interception.
Yeah,
and he bounced back, and
that is something he's improved on because in that first couple of years we would see him make a mistake, and then you could see him.
Same thing in college.
Yeah, you could see him kind of go internally. He had internalized this thing and try to do too much.
But
sometimes.
To beat Kansas City, something. Because they're still, I think, them and Tampa Bay still the top 2 teams. But Kansas City made 2 big mistakes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they did.
I thought the interception that Mahomes threw was kind of the game shifted the momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kansas City had an opportunity to just kind of run the clock down and kick the field goal, and that's what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And, the running back, the LSU running back,
yeah,
he dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And that was the break that Baltimore needed.
Mm-hmm.
And give the coach Harbaugh some credit at Baltimore. He went for it on 4th and 1 at the Kansas City 40.
You're right.
With a minute to go in the game, and he could have punted, but I think he made the right decision because I think if you punt it to Mahomes, they're going to get a field goal.
Well, and I love the
so
little
he went for it.
Yeah, the post game conversation where Lamar Jackson said, he asked me, Should we go for it?
Well, of course he's going to say yes.
Well,
that didn't impress me. Who wouldn't say yes?
Well, what does no, he would say yes, but what does impress me is Harbaugh believes in him in the same way that he would even.
It's two things.
All right.
It's to believe in him, and it's also I don't want to give it to Mahomes.
Yeah.
If that was Andy Dalton, they would have kicked it.
Why you want to hate on Andy Dalton like that, John?
They would have kicked it. Believe me.
If it had been just about any other quarterback, they'd have kicked it.
Brady probably they would not have. You know, he would have gone.
They,
for it.
Three, they would have said, "No, we'll just go for it, and if we don't get it, if we were going to lose the game anyway."
There's a couple of guys that you just don't give the ball back.
Right, and you know, but the other thing is. They didn't outthink it either. I mean, what they do on that 4th and 1
they didn't
play?
Call timeout.
Yeah, they did. Lamar Jack. They said, it's you.
Yeah,
you know, you get the first down. I mean, so
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, because a lot of times you see these coaches, feel like they outthink themselves in these situations and they get too clever. But he's like, I got the dude who can get the first down. He said he can get the first down. If he doesn't get it, you know, we probably weren't going to win the game anyway.
They had rushed for 270 yards.
Yeah,
they got to get one more.
Yeah,
or punt it and let Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
just
that's the thing.
Get a field goal. It's not, it's different if they had to score a touchdown,
right?
With no timeouts, go the length. That's different.
Yeah,
but only go about 30 yards.
Yeah, I mean he can dink and dump to Hill a couple of times, and
Kelsey.
They got 30 yards. Yeah, Kelsey.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a right call, but it's not something most NFL coaches would have done.
No, you mentioned the Bucks. I mean, they're 2-0, right? They look good in just about every phase. What did Brady throw? 4 touchdowns on Sunday, I think it was. 5,
maybe 5.
Yeah, I mean, because he's 3 or 4 away from beating Drew Brees' record.
He's got 9 in 2 games.
Yeah, so I mean, he's I don't know, he's eternal to start with.
I mean, I don't know what else you say. He's tremendous.
And so that was a great game. But let's get on to the college football real quick. We had Louisville beat Central Florida.
Big win for them.
That's a good win.
It's a very good win. The alternative would have been a disaster. 1-2.
They were already ready to ride Satterfield out of town.
Central Florida's a good team.
That is the program that everybody wants in their conference right now because of the recruiting zone.
They're going to the Big 12.
Yes.
But, I mean, Louisville controlled the game, and then looked like they were in complete control. And Central Florida comes back and ties it 35.
Uh-huh.
And Louisville turns it over. Central Florida looks like they're going in for a winning field goal and interception. Freshman picks it up and takes it 70 yards to the house, right?
Yeah. It was great finish, too.
6 seconds to go, or 12 seconds. Yeah, it's a big win. Louisville needed it. The coach needed it because he is on shaky grounds right now.
Yeah, he is. After his flirtation with South Carolina last year, and
not having a very good year last year.
Yeah, not having a very good year. There's some doubt in his recruiting ability right now.
Yep.
They needed to figure, and it's good that one of his freshmen
got blown out by Ole Miss. But Ole Miss is going to blow out a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's Lane Kiffin's offense that they're gonna kill you, or he's probably gonna lose badly because he's Lane Kiffin.
I think they're for real.
Yeah, their offense definitely is. And then Kentucky holds on to beat Chattanooga.
Yeah, that wasn't a very good game for him.
No, and Stoops after the game, I mean he did what a coach I guess is supposed to do, takes responsibility for not getting his players ready.
Whatever that
yada
means.
yada yada.
Not ready to play.
Yeah, I mean sometimes maybe it's. I don't know what the coach does to get them ready to play. I mean, either they come out there and they play like they're supposed to, or they don't. I don't know what the coach is supposed to do about that.
I don't either. I mean, it's a cliche. I mean, they're
at this point
not ready to play. What does that mean? They just took the week off and just showed up. I guarantee they practice every day. I guarantee they went over film. I guarantee you all that stuff happened.
Yeah.
So they're just not ready to play.
Yeah, they had them eating ice cream. They had them going to the ice cream truck all week like it's Little League or whatever.
They were preparing for South Carolina all last week.
Well, they better be ready for South Carolina.
So I've never bought that. I mean, can you have an emotional letdown? Yeah, you can have an emotional letdown. I mean, that's part of it, but not ready to play. I don't buy that. What are you supposed to do? You can't lie to them.
No.
Because if you lie to them and you tell them that Chattanooga is, blah, blah, all this other stuff, then what are you going to tell them when you face Florida, Alabama? So you can't lie to them, but they do have to appreciate that you can get beat by anybody, and you can, if you turn the ball over and you're not. I think it's focus more than anything. It's not necessarily not ready to play. It's focus, and it's focused by the right players. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get all 100 of them like that. But your quarterback needs to be focused. Enough of your defensive players, you got to have enough of that going in, and they clearly. I don't know. Did they take them lightly? Maybe. I don't know. But I know they were behind in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lose that game. To be honest, talking about
you don't like paying a team $1 million to come in to lose and then lose to them. Yeah, there's kind of like the reason why you're paying them is you want to win. Okay, not to come in and take your money in. That's like bank robbery.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like losing on homecoming when you're supposed to beat the Patsy and you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, that didn't go as planned at all. Talking about the player focus and that kind of stuff. Whenever I was a young sports reporter, this basketball coach told me his team got down 14-1 in the first quarter in the first round of the playoffs. And it was
14-1 in basketball.
Yes.
Okay, playoffs.
Yeah. So
postseason. Okay.
Yeah. So and so after they ended up losing the game by like 2 or 3 points. I mean, they came back, and I asked him after the game. I said, what happened in the first quarter? I said, do you think your players just weren't focused? He goes, well, it's the playoffs. He goes, if they're not focused for the playoffs, what am I supposed to do with them? And I thought it was a cop-out response, but as I got older, I realized, no, he's right. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they don't show up ready to play and you're going to go home if you lose the game, what are you supposed to do with them?
I don't know. Just certain things you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, it really is.
Yeah. I mean, you can draw up all the plays and run all the plays and everything. And
did you prepare? As long as you prepared.
I do believe that his star player who led him in scoring hit one shot in the game.
Yeah, there's things you can't overcome.
Yeah, but anyway, I just always kind of thought, like at that time in my mind, I was like, well, that just sounds like a cop-out. Surely he could have done something differently. Mm-hmm. But then later, as I kept covering teams and watching high-pressure situations and realizing, sometimes some people just aren't up for it.
Yep.
They just aren't there for it. Meanwhile, let's talk about the Hilltoppers. They took the weekend off. They get Indiana next, which came into the season with high expectations.
Wounded Indiana, 0-2.
Yeah. So, they were I don't know.
I hear it's a sellout.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I hear it is a sellout at Western. I don't remember the last time they've had a sellout.
It would have been a while. I wonder, because I don't even think when they hosted the Conference USA Championship game, it wasn't a sellout.
No.
That was an underwhelming situation. I could be wrong,
so check. If you want to go, check for tickets. But I've heard that it's a sellout. I hope it is.
Yeah. That'll be,
Is this the first appearance from a Big Ten school to play us in football at home?
So I think the biggest one,
Big Ten, I said.
Yeah, as far as Big Ten, I can't think of one that's been there. We've had Vanderbilt played there.
Did Vanderbilt come to Western?
No, they played in Nashville, didn't they?
Yep.
The home game for Western was actually in Nashville, so not a home game at all.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the bigger teams that's come and played at
Power
WKU.
5 conference.
Right. So that's good in its own right, and it's good that the fan support has come back.
It's good that Indiana's willing to come.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the fan support, it helps to win, but it also, at Western, you have to play a style, I think, that people want to watch.
Yeah, they're doing it.
And they're doing it.
So, I don't know. What do you think about the game as a matchup, though, for WKU?
I think they got a chance.
Yeah.
Because they competed well against Army.
Mm-hmm.
It should be high scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana can score. So, it should be high scoring. Indiana be, touchdown favorite.
Yeah.
Probably at least a touchdown.
Just because of the conference affiliation situation?
Indiana was top 25 in the conference in the country last year, too.
Yeah.
They start off, losing Cincinnati. Cincinnati, they lost, just got beat by Cincinnati. Cincinnati's number 8 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that game was 28-24 at one time. So, Cincinnati's got a good team. They lost to Iowa, top 20 in the country, and Cincinnati. So, you just compare the schedules.
Right.
Cincinnati should. Indiana will be a favorite, but do I think can Western compete? I do think they can compete.
I think, depending on
do I think they'll win? No, I don't.
Do you not?
I do not. No, but I think they will compete.
Yeah, I think your thing about the high scoring thing is the thing. I think WKU can score the points with them. I don't think that they can make the plays defensively, probably to slow Indiana
it'd be
down.
Nice for Western to win. Indiana has to win.
Yeah, they are in a bad situation, especially considering the expectations on Indiana coming into this season.
They have to win. That's correct.
Anything else about college football from the weekend that stood out to you?
I watched the Alabama-Florida game. That was a really good game.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alabama wins, but Florida was a much more physical team than Alabama. It was like the Baltimore-Kansas City game.
Mm-hmm.
Florida just ran it down their throat the second half.
Yeah.
And just kind of ran out of time.
You know, Dan Mullen must be one heck of a coach.
He is. Do I like him? Not always. I think he's a little weird, and I didn't like some of the things he did last year.
No, he was off
out
the
of
chains
control
last year.
I did. But is he a good coach? Yeah, I think he's very good.
Yeah. And that's got to be a little bit scary for some of these SEC schools that he seems to have gotten Florida back to being Florida, and because the talent's always there in Florida.
Always.
So, all right, it's Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, this is our, I guess, weekly feature where we make a whirlwind tour around some of the sports in the area. I guess we should start off with the high school golf because a week from today will be the girls' regional golf tournament.
Wow.
I know. And then that's going to be at Indian Hills over in Bowling Green. And then a week from tomorrow is the boys' regional golf tournament. That's going to be at Rolling Hills in Russellville. So, I mean, we're right there at the end of the season.
Hope the weather's better for them.
Yeah, it's not too great. It hadn't been too great over the weekend, not too great today. The only thing it's supposed to be too great tomorrow. A couple of things that I actually had down that were coming up. I'll just go ahead and mention those. The district golf was supposed to be today, boys and girls. It doesn't count for anything. It's just a 14 match, basically. Pride, yes. Well, it's now going to be played Thursday at Willow Oaks. I think it's going to start at 4. So that's still going to happen. It's just not happening today. The Barren County girls were supposed to play Greenwood Day in soccer. That was a huge game for them coming up. That one's been canceled because of field conditions. I don't know if they're going to try to make that game up because the district golf will be October 2nd and 3rd. I believe it's going to be at the soccer complex here. I don't think it's at Allen. So they're going to play those a week from 2 weeks away, basically. So I don't know if they'll try to make up that game with Greenwood or if Greenwood wants to try to do that before we get to these last 2 weeks of the season. So there's a couple of cancellations. I guess we'll see about some of the events that are scheduled tomorrow because Barren and Glasgow are supposed to play in boys and girls soccer tomorrow at the soccer complex. If the field conditions are still bad and it's not supposed to stop really raining by tomorrow, I guess they'll have to figure out when they're going to play those games or if they are going to play those games because in a way they don't really matter because there's only 2 teams in the girls district, Barren and Glasgow. Barren's already won the first game, so we know they're going to play each other on October 3rd. On the boys' side, Glasgow does still have to play Allen. They've had 2 games already canceled. Now, one of them I think was considered a COVID cancellation, so technically Glasgow got that win. And Glasgow's already beaten Barren. Barren's already beaten Allen, so there are the 3 teams in that district. They would play Barren and Allen would go ahead and play on October 2nd. Winner would play Glasgow on October 3rd. So, yeah, I guess if it all gets rained out tomorrow as well or they can't play on the fields, they may not try to make them up. I don't know if they will or not. So those are some things coming up. Meanwhile, though, let's get back to the golf. I think what is probably the best golf tournament in the state was played this past weekend as far as like high school because of the way they do it. That the Kentucky Golf Coaches Association started an all-state event. I think it started in 2019. And it's a points system, so you got to play in a certain number.
And it's not all A.
And it's not all A.
It's not all 2A.
No, it's not all 2A.
It's all.
It's all.
I like all.
Yeah, it is all.
All.
It is all, and it's not restricted based on geography either.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good tournament. I kind of like the system that they have in place for getting the teams in it. It's a limited field. You got to have a certain number of points and fall in. I think maybe it's top 8 teams and top 16 individuals. I don't know the exact numbers. But Glasgow's girls qualified, and they played in the girls' side. None of our boys had scored enough points to make it as individuals, and our teams didn't make it. So that tells you just how tough it is because we've had a couple of guys who have had good seasons, but they didn't qualify points-wise. So the Glasgow Lady Scotties played in it. They finished 5th as a team.
Very, very respectable.
Very respectable. And the teams that they were behind You know, we're
Sacred
talking
Heart.
Yep, Sacred Heart. We're talking Madison Central, Marshall County, Madisonville, North Hopkins, Sacred Heart.
Marshall County's the defending state champion.
Yeah, and these teams, if you go and look at these big tournaments all throughout the season, these teams have been at the top all season long.
Right.
I think it was Madisonville, North Hopkins that came and won Barren County's event, girls' event this year. One of them did. I can't remember if it was them or Marshall County, actually. So, I mean, we've seen some of them. They shoot often low 300s as a team, high 290s a couple of times. Got some of the best golfers in the state. So, respectable outcome there for the Lady Scotties. They actually finished ahead of the team they lost to in the All-A the week before.
Lexington Christian.
Yep. So they were ahead of them, I think, by 5 or 6 strokes by the final score. Nina McMurtry finished 5th as an individual. She shot 75 both days.
That's right.
Yeah. On day 1, Glasgow, I think Bailey Birdsell and Grayson Flatt both shot like 78, 79.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding rounds for them. So it was,
it's a good experience.
It is a good experience. And a lot of people like to complain about the state golf tournament just because of the way it's set up, and we've talked about this before. You got some 16th region teams. I hate to pick on the 16th region. It's just this was the case last year and has been. They shoot a score that wouldn't qualify them to get out of any other region.
Yep.
And so, that kind of, I think, has a drag a little bit on the state tournament in terms of how people see it.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, that's a good experience for Glasgow. As we get ready to roll into that regional tournament next week, if they play like they did over the weekend, I mean, they are going to be hard to beat in that regional tournament.
They'll be the favorite, no question.
Yeah. And so, and right now, I think probably Barren is they've just kind of struggled, to be honest.
Second or third?
They could be second or third.
Yeah, they've had some COVID issues as well.
Yeah.
But, it's just have to remember in the regional tournament now they changed the format. Only the winning team goes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take 2 teams, and winning team, and then they take individuals who also can qualify.
Yeah, I think it's 8 individuals maybe.
Yeah, it was 5. Now it's up to 8.
Yeah, I think that's right. And so Barren could have a couple of golfers who can shoot the rounds to get into the state tournament, but as a team, their scores have not been close enough to Glasgow's at this point this year. And as a matter of fact, I don't know, it may be Greenwood maybe have the second best team average so far this year. But Glasgow in this third region has just been head and shoulders above everybody else. Now, I will say this. There are probably a couple of players that threaten, like Nina McMurtry right now has posted the best rounds in the region as far as I can tell. There are a couple of Sydney McClanahan and Ainsley Cruz from South Warren. They don't have a full team this year. They only got 2 golfers out there playing varsity golf. They both have had some rounds that could threaten Nina. And who knows? Grayson Flatt and Bailey Birdsell have played well enough. They might put some pressure on their teammates.
Sure.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out next week. Then we had cross country over the weekend. They also had a big meet. A couple of Barren County's runners ran in it. The Trinity Valkyrie Invitational.
Sacred Heart. It's in Louisville.
Yeah. They had teams from all over the mid-America basically.
Yeah, Ohio, Indiana.
Yep. And Gracie Reed Gracie Reed and Chesney McPherson ran in the varsity event over there. Gracie Reed finished 9th. I don't remember the exact number of runners, but she ran 18:55, which was
close to 100.
Yeah, which was fantastic. Chesney McPherson was 14th, ran 19:06.
Good time.
Yeah, they are
right with each other.
Yeah, and they are.
I love it. It's just like the Glasgow girls golfers. They're challenging themselves. They're running against the top competition. Mm-hmm. And that can only make you better.
Yeah. Our other area runners ran in the Gator Lane Classic, and I didn't look at everybody's results.
That was a swamp they ran through.
Man, some of those photos.
I saw some of those photos. They was in deep water.
They have these things called mud runs and whatnot. It was more like that than it was a high school cross country meet. And some of these kids, if they're the middle school kids and all, I mean, they're so small. You might be worried about them getting swept away.
Knee deep.
Yeah. So I did notice that Mia Cassidy finished 22nd in the girls, and Mary Warren from Barren. Mia's from Glasgow. Mary Warren from Barren finished 30th. Without Gracie Reed and Chesney McPherson there running for Barren, their team score was way on down.
Right.
But yeah, they got out there. That's usually a pretty good meet too. And then let's talk a little bit about the Barren County girls soccer team. We mentioned they aren't playing the Greenwood game today. They had a couple of good wins last week.
Yeah, they're still shorthanded, too, last week.
Yeah, I mean, they were without Haley Hills and without Graceland DeWeese, I believe.
Yeah, and beat two Bowling Green schools.
Yeah,
I know Warren East is down, but they won, and South Warren does not have a winning record, but the competition is good, and they knocked them off 3-2. It was up 3-0 at one time and hung on. So, yeah, I mean, they moved to, what are they? I think they're like 6-4-1, 7-4-1. So with a couple weeks left as well.
Yeah, as we mentioned, they've also, I mean, they've beefed up that schedule this year.
Yes, they have.
So I mean, we'll see. I think right now, as we get ready to move into the postseason, especially in the team sports, one of the things we got to watch out for is who's going to be playing for these teams. I mean,
with COVID.
Yeah, with COVID.
No
I mean,
question. You won't know. You won't know until to the game time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get called out of class at 1:30, and you're quarantined for so many days. So it's touch and go at any time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be interesting to see what kind of impact that has as we roll into the playoffs in a couple of weeks. The volleyball playoffs will be a week after that, I believe. Not much to report on that front. I think Barren and Caverna played over the weekend. Barren won 2-0. Barren has got a winning record. They're doing okay. Glasgow and Caverna had a COVID hiatus, and they've struggled since then. And Glasgow is like a team that you watch them play. They lead in these sets, and they just can't quite finish. They're playing with a bunch of younger players.
Right.
I mean, you see their scores, and so hopefully they get it turned around. And who knows? One of these may shock somebody when the playoffs come. But in the 15th district right now, it's still Allen and Monroe.
No, Allen.
Well, yes, you're right, Allen. Barron's in maybe the second place team at the moment. All right, it's the Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we had some Major League Baseball. We're closing in on the end of the season.
Yes, we are.
The longest season on the planet.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and the last time we really talked about this, the Reds were in good shape.
Yes.
They were ahead in the wild card race. They were in second in their division and not too far back there. But since then, they've turned into the Reds again.
Well, I mean, they had a series with the Dodgers. That's not easy.
No, that's a good point.
That's not easy. But no, they've not played great. And the problem with the Reds is that St. Louis has won 8 in a row.
Yeah.
And now the Reds are not in charge of the wild card, but they have 2 weeks left, and maybe a game out, 2 games out. I didn't check the standings today.
Yeah, I was going to look real quick as we were discussing this.
So I mean, they're within range, but anytime that you lose that lead, it kind of goes out of your control.
Well, and I think the biggest problem for them is that. Like you mentioned, they lost that series to the Dodgers, and so the Dodgers and the Giants are like one game apart. They just happen to be in the same division.
Well, they're not going to catch them. They're both,
no, they're not.
Yeah, one's going to win the division, and the Dodgers is going to be one of the wild cards. So it's between San Diego, St. Louis, and Cincinnati. And
right now they're actually 3 games behind the Cardinals, as you mentioned, and so that's kind of the problem. Sometimes you might have 2 slots open that you can get into, but everybody's playing for one slot right now.
2 weeks left, 1 slot down 3. Somebody's going to beat St. Louis. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Reds have St. Louis on their schedule. I don't think so.
Yeah, they're just they went from being in a good position to not being in a very good position at all.
They need to win, and they need help.
And their schedule finishes up. They got the series. They start today. Pretty much as soon as we get done here, you'll be able to listen to this game on this station. With the Pirates, they played 3-game series with the Pirates.
Should beat them.
They need to get that one. But last week they played them and lost 2 games to them.
I know.
And so then they got the Nationals. They played 4 games against the Nationals.
They're in last. They quit in the middle of the year.
They did, didn't they?
Traded all their players.
And then they've got 2 games left with the White Sox. So I mean, they're in a position if they can get it done. They could roll off 6 or 7 wins here. But
they can. But they need St. Louis to lose.
Yeah, and that's the key. And.
Well, I mean, St. Louis is not going to finish. They're not going to win 16 in a row, I don't think.
Yeah.
So they're due to lose.
Maybe they're headed for a good 8-game losing streak.
I mean, that's if you follow St. Louis, that's been their history lately.
I got a couple of friends who are fans of the Cardinals, and I think they alternate between like euphoric joy to like abject
anger,
depression, and angry.
Yep.
So I mean, it's being a Cardinals fan these days is just not a good thing to be. Maybe kind of like being a Reds fan in a way. I know the guys who do the Red Legs Radio Report last year, I think this is the 7th season they've done the show, Jason Harbison and Todd Smith. And they last year may have been the first year or the second time they've gotten to do
a little postseason. Yeah,
postseason action. And I'm pretty sure a couple of weeks ago they thought they were in pretty good shape to get to not be done in 2 weeks. But the Reds may have let them down. What are some other things you're looking at in the world of Major League Baseball or beyond, John?
You know, just the playoffs. I'm just be glad when the season wraps up. You know, it's forever. So I mean, I'll watch the playoffs when that hits.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, it's right now. It's to be honest with you, it's football, college football, and college basketball. I mean, USC. You know, fired their coach.
Yeah.
That's
Clay Helton, the brother of Tyson Helton.
That's correct. You know, after 2 games, I thought that was a little extreme.
When you see those kinds of firings, you're like, well, didn't you know you were done with him before the year started?
So they were 1-1.
Yeah.
And something, you just get rid of him after 2. That seems like you've already made up your mind. Why you bring him back? I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah.
They did that, so.
And then what? The UConn coach? I
think the UConn coach announced that he was going to retire at the end of the year, and UConn just said, "Don't come back."
He came back to his office, and the door lock was changed.
So that's all right.
His key didn't work.
You can just start. You can start right now.
Yeah, happy retirement.
Yeah, and then you got the schools jumping to the Big 12. I don't know if we talked about that last night.
We just mentioned that the discussion was underway. That maybe we shoveled the dirt.
Well, the landscape is changing. Those 3. Austin P just announced they're leaving the OVC.
Yeah.
Austin P, Eastern, and Jacksonville State. That's 3.
Are they going to the A-Sun?
They're going to the A-Sun with Bellarmine.
Yeah.
So the OVC is now looking for members.
Yeah.
Because they've lost 3.
And the A-Sun looks like they're shaping up to be at least maybe an effective mid-major basketball conference.
Bellarmine, I think David Lipscomb's in there.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Looks like it. And they got now 6 football members.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
the OVC's got to do something. I'm guessing Tennessee Martins and schools like that,
Yeah.
will join.
Maybe we'll just start shoveling dirt on them, and then they'll figure it out.
Well, they announced they're going after some others.
Yeah. I mean,
they're down to 6 football playing members. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, there comes a point, though, I just don't know how many schools you can keep shuffling around.
Yeah.
I mean, because some of these schools are not making movements up; they're making lateral movements as far as like into a conference. Not the case with the Cincinnatis and all that are going to the Big 12, but some of this ASUN, OVC movement, it looks like lateral movements to me.
It looks like it. There may be some D2 or NAI you may want to jump up.
True, yeah,
like Bellarmine did.
Yeah,
and the OVC could be their calling.
Yeah, I mean that probably makes more sense than just about anything. We just don't know who they are yet.
Right.
Well, I mean, it'll be it's always fascinating, man, when it comes to this business here, when it comes to those schools moving around.
When 100 years and nobody moved, and all of a sudden it's just...
In 20 years, it's like everybody, it's like, what is it, the deck chairs on the Titanic or whatever?
Everything's just constantly movement and shifting.
Yeah, so it's always pretty fascinating. Well, John, it's been another great show with us here.
Enjoyed it.
Well, we'll be back next week. It's Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. You can also get it on a podcast.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.